Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Global Hack Week. We'll be continuing our Your First Website track. So I'm super excited. Hey, what's up? It's good to see some familiar names here. I always love a returner. Oh, hello. Good morning. I'm so glad to see y'all coming from part one, coming back to part two. Today, part two is going to be consisting of CSS. This one will be more kind of, I think, worksheet style, but work through it together. But what I love about CSS, it really allows you to, like hone your creativity. Oh, you did Bootstrap yesterday? That's so exciting. Oh my goodness. I love hearing people working on their skills and like reusing. But make sure that y'all get very comfy today. I have my tea mug. I actually have a shot of espresso just a second ago to get pumped for this workshop, but I can't drink too much coffee, otherwise I'll stay up all night because it's about 6 p.m. for me. I don't know why I checked the clock. I knew what time this was. Yeah, I remember SKB. I'm so glad that you even if you had to leave the stream earlier, you still did it later. Appreciate it. Before we begin, I want to also make sure to mention that if you haven't already, go ahead and check the Discord, because on the Discord, you can find the link on the announcements to check in for this workshop. Always make sure to check in. You'll get some nice perks, so make sure you do that. Feel free to go ahead and do that now, and I'll pull up our slides for today. Also, where's everyone currently streaming in from? I know we have a couple people from India. Props to you for y'all getting up that early in the morning. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're taking the time to come learn how to code. Link to the Discord. I believe this is the link to the. I think this is the link to the Discord. You can just do discord.mlh.io, I think. Okay, it looks like we have some people from New York. Love East Coasters. I'm currently on the West Coast. However, I was born and raised in Virginia. Some more general US. And of course, y'all who are waking up early in the morning, you're from India. Thank you so much for, getting up and joining me. And for everyone in the US, thank you for staying up and joining me. I know some of y'all either just got off work, have just had dinner, and are starting to like wind down for the day. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the slides. If you're wondering where the slides are, check out that link down below. It's hackp.ac/YFW with Mara 2. Yesterday we did 1, today is 2, Friday is 3, but that's Your First Website, YFW with Mara 2. Also go ahead and send it in the chat as well, and that is where you'll find the GitHub and the slides for today. But don't worry, we'll be going through all that together. But if you want to have it on the side in case I go a little bit fast, you're welcome to. I also want to preface this with feel free to ask any questions. We're a comfy group today, so I don't mind taking some time to answer any questions, any confusions, go back or anything. This class is about y'all learning, about y'all having a good time. So a big way that you can help me out is let me know how you're doing in chat. Okay, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce myself a little bit. So this is Your First Website. It's an intro to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We're doing independent projects within each language for each workshop. So today we're focusing on the second one, which is CSS. But to introduce myself, hi, I'm Mara. I've been an MLH coach since November 2020. I haven't live streamed in a minute, but I'm super excited to be back. This was my bread and butter when I first got started. Right now, I actually work as a full stack web developer using React and TypeScript. And I actually got my start in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm convinced that is how I landed my first ever internship and landed in this job field, which is crazy. If you want to find me on Twitter, Mara Codes, that's it. So I'm really excited to be here with y'all. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to intro a little bit about like what a website is, how the code works. We're going to refresh on some HTML. If you were here yesterday, a lot of it should be like a quick little refresher. Then we'll dive into CSS. The reason that we're going HTML first, then CSS is CSS is meant to style HTML, so you can't really have CSS on its own. And then of course, we're going to practice it together. So first, let's go over what is a website. So, if you're online right now, you've used a website before. Right now you're using twitch.com, but a really common one is Google. So basically a website is a way for you to display information online through a screen for people to see on the internet. And all these websites, if you go all the way down, they're made out of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So one good example is actually the Major League hacking site. And you can even see the code of any website you want just by right-clicking and inspecting elements. So this is actually that CSS code. You'll see that in the styles. If you want to know how to do that, you just go ahead and go here, right-click, press inspect. So that just shows you how to do it. So that kind of goes over just the basics of what a website is. If you're really wondering, like the three languages that build it up, we have HTML, we have CSS, and we have JavaScript. What I really love about this is you can kind of compare it to a body. Your HTML, that is going to be the skeleton. You have to have that. That is the backbone, the bare bones of a website. Okay. If you don't have HTML, this other stuff's kind of moot. But, if we just all walked around just as a skeleton, we would look a little scary, a little spooky. So that's where CSS comes in. CSS is going to give us our skin. If you play video games like Valorant or Fortnite, you have different skins. Minecraft, you have different skins. Skins are a way that kind of change how you look. Then we have JavaScript. JavaScript is like the muscle. JavaScript will allow you to do a lot more with your code, which is really, really great. It adds a little extra oomph, so you can have more user interaction. As you get like more complex in websites, you'll start learning about things like React, which is a JavaScript library. Okay, so we're gonna go over HTML basics. I just want to check, does anyone have any questions so far? I'm gonna take a quick sip of my tea while I wait. Make a site with only JavaScript. I think you still need some HTML in there, because otherwise, if you don't have HTML, I think that's just going to be something that you would just do in like a console or something. So that's why we're going to go over HTML basics, because that is the backbone of everything. Maybe you don't need a lot of HTML to make a website, but you need some. And if you want to learn more JavaScript, we'll be doing that at Friday, an hour later than this stream. Okay, so again, if you were here yesterday, you don't have to be. This is all going to look very familiar to you. I'm going to glaze over these a little bit, but we'll reiterate them as needed. And feel free, if you're stuck or confused on anything, send something in the chat. So HTML elements. HTML is just made out of a bunch of elements. They'll look like this format. You'll see the opening tag, you'll see all the content, and then you'll see the closing tag. And inside each tag, you'll have the element name. In this case, it's going to be P for paragraph. And what this is saying is it's like, hey computer, I'm a paragraph element. You should do paragraph things when I show up. And then it has all this content. And the computer's like, okay, I'm gonna make that look like a paragraph. And then you see the closing tag, and the element's like, hey, I'm headed out. I'm good. I'm closed. I'm closed for business. Last call. Moving on. And the computer's like, okay, great. I'll just put that stuff in between and make that a paragraph. So that is actually what that HTML element is going to do. You usually need to have an opening, and a closing tag. And then everything in the middle, that depends on the element. Next, we have classes. We talked about classes a little bit yesterday when we introduced Bootstrap. Today, we're not going to talk about Bootstrap, but we will kind of talk about like how Bootstrap actually works. It comes down to the nitty-gritty of CSS. Classes are one way that the HTML is going to communicate to the CSS. This is a many-to-many relationship. So each class can have multiple elements, and each element can have multiple classes. This is really great. I usually use them for like describing something that is more general. So let's say I want something to look like a container. I'll probably have multiple containers on the screen. So I can use container. Or I'm like, I want this to be 100 pixels for the width. So then, but there's also probably multiple things that I want to be at 100 pixels for the width. So I give it the class 100 width. This means, and same for like blue tags and button and blue tags. One thing I want to mention with the A class, you'll see that actually has two class names. It's a button, then it's a space, and then it's blue text. Also, if at any point you're like, oh my goodness, this doesn't make sense, I'm a little confused, do not worry, because what we're doing right now is we are going over the kind of concepts. I'm just priming you, and then we're going to go ahead and practice this later. So we will, all the information that we have, we'll take a break and we'll do it all together. Okay, so this is an example of some elements and how they can have the classes. Next, you'll have IDs. So this is another way that HTML can communicate with CSS. I mean, also JavaScript, but we're not talking about that for now. This is a one-to-one relationship. Each ID can only be attached to one element, and each element can only be attached to one ID. For example, you'd want to be using IDs for more specific things. So if you have a main div, a main division block, you'd call that main. There's only going to be one thing that's the main, otherwise they can't all be main. Then say you have an image that is a dog picture, and you only have one dog picture. So we'll just call that dog pic. Also, those are all supposed to say ID. I think that's a typo that says class. But that being said, I want you to notice that the way that we define them looks no different. It's ID equals something and class equals something. The only difference is ID or class, the attribute name, equals and the value. The value can be the same, but the attribute name is going to be changing. And what we actually do with it is what makes the difference. As of right now, without any like CSS, who cares if that's what the ID and the class is? So let's go over how we'd actually do the CSS for that. Any questions so far? I know it can be a little confusing. I'm just gonna take tea breaks while I see if y'all have any questions. Okay, so it's like we're good. Also, again, to reiterate, if at any point in the middle of this you have questions, feel free to send. Okay, let's actually talk about CSS itself. Fun fact, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. You, to be honest, do not need to know what it stands for. I don't think anyone's gonna ever ask you. Anyone's ever gonna be like, what does CSS stand for? No one will. If they do, just tell them, I know how to code it. Okay. Oh, cool question. So, do you mind explaining the diff between class and ID? Again, let's go back to that slide. Okay. So the big difference, I'm assuming you mean class and ID, because those are two different attributes, whereas a div is an element. So I'm assuming class and ID. So the big difference between class and ID is classes are a many-to-many relationship. Each class can have multiple elements, and each element can have multiple classes. Yes, wombo combo, you got it exactly right. And elements, again, can also have multiple classes. And then if we look at IDs, This is going to be something typically more specific, and it can only be declared once per, and then only one element can have one ID, and one ID can only be attached to one element. The point, like the purpose of these being different, yes, but it'd be better, it's better to have it one by one. Just because the way you're going to be using it is going to be like more specific. You don't want to have multiple IDs for multiple different elements, especially as we'll start using IDs to maybe link to different parts of your website, or we'll use IDs like a feature on in like JavaScript to refer to one specific button. But the main thing that we're going to be doing that's like really different is classes kind of refer more to general things. So let's say if you want something to have like blue text, you know, you'll do all that code in the CSS, and the way you'll connect it is you would give it the class blue text, and then we'd use that as a selector. Whereas IDs are more like when you're doing something more like specific. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk about declaration blocks. So declaration blocks, this is going to be the pattern that you'll see. So you'll have a selector. This selector can be an element, a class, an ID. We'll go ahead and we'll practice all of these. And you'll have the selector. You'll have the semicolon or the curly bracket to open everything up. And you'll have a property and a value, okay? A property and a value. That property is going to be something like color, background, font size, font weight, and that value is going to change depending on what that property is. So if you do color, you can do blue, red, a hex code, any color you can think of under the sun. If you do something like font size, you know, that's going to have to be like 14 point. If you do font weight, you have to choose something that's, you know, like 400 is normal font weight, 700 is bold font weight, 900 is extra bold. And then also you can do like margin, in which case there's like a lot of different values you can do, but it's typically going to be something that refers to how big your margin is. So you have the selector, you have the curly bracket, everything in the curly brackets is going to be what applies to that selector. So what's going on here is your computer is like reading through the CSS and your computer goes, this is CSS. Who is this for? And your computer reads the selector and it goes, oh, that's for the paragraph tag. Okay, so what does the paragraph tag want? Let's go check inside the curly brackets. The color, we want the color of the paragraph elements to be blue. Okay, I can do that. And it would keep going for as many as you have like the lines until it finds a closing bracket, a closing curly bracket. And you're like, oh, okay, we're done here. That's all the changes we want to do for now. Again, we'll also be practicing this. Then for example, this is how we would do something with the declaration. This is how we do like the declaration block for a class. You would just put a period and then you would use the class name. So when the computer sees this, it's like, oh, you have a period before that? So this must be a class. Oh, you want all the classes that are everything that has a class of 100 hyphen width. Oh, and you want it to have a width of 100 pixels. So that's how we do that. Then if we want a ID, then you'd go ahead and you use the pound symbol, hashtag, whatever you call it. But the pound symbol tells the computer, hey, look for an ID that goes by this. So essentially there are like a bunch of different cheats, like there's a bunch of different selectors that you can choose from. We're gonna focus primarily on element, class, and ID selectors. However, there's a lot of different combinations. So if you go into the slides that are linked down below, the hackp YFW with Mara 2, and you go to this slide right here, you can actually go ahead and click that link and you can see a cheat sheet of everything. Okay. Oh, quick comment. You don't need the double quotes around colors. Yes, that is correct. You do not need those. Those are optional. However, I like to have them just because, especially as you do like other coding, you start to need the double quotes and the double quotes shouldn't error. Okay. So next, this is something that we'll actually, let's go practice what we've learned so far. And when it comes back to this, we'll talk about pseudo classes. So let's go ahead. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and switch some screens for you. Is there any questions so far before we start the practice? I know the practice is going to, I think that's where the questions are really going to come through. Okay. So this is the practice. Let me go ahead and send this to y'all. So we're doing this worksheet style. I just figured this would probably be the easiest way so we can see it all together. And then, does anyone need me to zoom in or anything? I know we all have different size like monitors and whatnot. Just let me know if you need me to zoom in. I'm gonna give you all a second to get to that. You can either get to that by the GitHub that's, scrolling down below, or I just sent the link into the chat. So give me like a I got it when you're at this page. Also, to let you know, this worksheet is going to be it's mostly about working on the property and the values. So if you notice, all the selectors are already chosen for you. And then we'll practice real properly after that. Okay, we got 2. I'm there, I'm in. I'll wait for 1 or 2 more just to make sure y'all are there. Okay, looks like we're pretty there. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll read this together. Perfect, we got a bunch of I'm-ins. Okay, love this. Okay, so the first thing, something that's fun is you can actually type in here and you can change the style and you see it right before your eyes. So in this exercise, you'll be using different types of selectors to style elements on a web page. So first we're going to use the type selector to make all the paragraphs on the page blue. So we're going to use the type selector, and we want the p type, so we're using p. Does anyone know by chance how to make all the paragraphs on the page turn blue? What property would we do and what value would we do? I'm gonna see if anyone knows. Okay, enthusiastic alien, what is up? Yes, you are correct. So let's type that in. Let's see what's up. Look at that. Wombo combo, background color blue. Background color blue is actually going to be a little bit different. So background color blue is going to make the background of all the paragraph tags blue. And if you notice right now, I have everything on the same line. Doesn't look like the best for design, but that's just simply just how I'm typing it to show it. So if you notice, the background color blue changes the background color itself. Color refers to the text. You can also just do background blue as well. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, so if you look into the code, you'll find that, I could actually probably just show you the code. let's look specifically right here. Okay, so if you look into this code, you can see that the first paragraph actually has this class called first. And then if you look into it, you'll see that this second one will actually have a class called second. So using those classes, how do we make the first paragraph red and the second paragraph green? We've already made them blue. How do we overwrite that and make that red and green? Oh, okay. This is how we do first. Or wait, let's test it out. Let's test it out to see if that's how we do first. Ooh, it's red. How do we do that second paragraph green? And while y'all send that, I'm gonna go ahead and also show you something else. So, you can type the word red and there's some like predefined colors already in there, but say you want something like completely custom, you can use something like a hex code. So a hex code uses hexadecimal. You'll have to like research it, but if you've seen anything like this, the first two like characters refer to red, the second two refer to green, and then the third two refer to blue. So if I put FF, that's the highest it can be, that's going to be red. If I want to make it purple, I could also do that. That's like kind of technically purple. But yeah, so if you want a custom color, you can use a hex code. So the second color is going to be green. So yeah, we just go ahead and we do color green. There we go. She's looking cute. It's nice and colorful. Wombo Combo brings up a good point that is a little advanced. So first or nth of a child, this is actually on the free Code Camp selector cheat sheet that I linked in the slides. This is more robust, and it would be like every time you have like the first of a list or a second of the list, it would have that. That goes a little fancier than what we're going to be doing today. But if you have something in your code where you're like, hey, I want every time that there is a list, I want the first item in the list to be like red, a second item in the list to be green, orange, yellow. I'm forgetting the colors of the rainbow, but you could like make that a pattern. Oh, thank you. This is like fancy. So something to mention there. So that's hexadecimal. You'll see that the first two are red, the middle two are green, and the last two are blue. So you can do anything from 0 to F for each of the characters. That just refers to a number type called hexadecimal. You know how we typically count in decimal? We go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we kind of start over at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then we start, or 19, and then we start over at 20, etc. And we repeat. The biggest that we get is 10. That is hexadecimal. So decimal, 10, hexa, 6. Together, hexadecimal is 16. So we go 0 to 9, and then we have A, B, C, D, E, F. That gives us 16 characters to choose from, and that just determines kind of the value. So if you look up like different kind of counting systems, you have binary, which is zeros and ones. You have octal, which is like 0 to 8, decimal, 0 to 10, and hexadecimal, which is 0 to F. So definitely research it if you want, but you can also, if you are a little too lazy to figure out like what color your thing is, you can just always Google like HTML color picker or hex code color picker or things like that. It's the internet. There's a lot of ways to do things for a lot easier. Okay, next we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use an ID selector to make the third paragraph orange. So if I go ahead and inspect that, let's see what that HTML looks like. We'll see that this has an ID of first, third. So we want to make just this paragraph have the third paragraph be orange. I think y'all have this down by now. So I'm going to give you all a quick second. So it's color, and then it's orange. So I know that looks kind of yellow, but let's pretend it's orange. This is what the computer says is orange. Okay, so now we've kind of gotten familiar with, now we've gotten familiar with like selectors. We've had an example of a type selector or an element selector, a class selector, and an ID selector. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Do you mind teaching what is REM and EM? I heard it's better to use REM and EM for multiple device. Let's go ahead and skip down to exercise 2 properties, and let's go to 2.2. So we're gonna look at font size. So I'm just gonna give this one to you, just so we can talk about this. So font size, I just made them 18 pixels, just made them bigger, or 18 point font. That's better. You typically use point per font. But just like I use pixels or point, the px or pt, there's actually a bunch of different units in CSS that you can use. I do not, if anyone knows what REM and EM stands for, please let me know. But what you can do is you can use them, and you'll notice that they're pretty huge. Let's make something more reasonable. Let's do 2. Yeah, REM. And then for all the headers, we're going to make that into 2.5 REM. Oh, I think about font size. So if you notice down here, they're a little bit bigger. And so what's really great about these is that they're relative sizing. Things like pixel or point is going to be absolute sizing, which means that even if you see it on your phone or on a super big monitor, it's always going to be the same size, absolutely. So when you're working with a bunch of different screen sizes, you want to use something that's relative. The relativity will help with responsiveness. It'll help make it look good, whether the screen is super big, like some curved monitor, or like super small, like as if you were looking at the screen of a BlackBerry. So let's see if you can see this on stream. But as the screen, it'll be able to be more relative, it'll change and things like that. So you'll see it more in practice. I think right now this isn't the best example of it, but you'll be able to see it more in practice as you do it yourself. So definitely, I think as you're coding, definitely look at the different unit options that you have in CSS and figure out what makes sense to you and what do you think is the most applicable. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this back to, actually, I'll leave it the same. I'll make these actually a little bit smaller. Just make them 1.5. Then we'll make this 1.8, maybe a little smaller. Okay, this is a little more reasonable. We're still changing the size. Okay, so that's how you can use the font size property. So let's go back up. Let's go back to 2.1. We're gonna go ahead and use the font family property and set the font of all the headings to the value Arial sans serif. Now, even if you don't know CSS, if you recognize the pattern, you know that there's a property : value. So knowing that, what would we put inside the curly brackets to make all the headings turn into Arial sans serif? Oh, facts, you are right. While y'all tell me how to do the font family thing, I'm gonna go ahead and show this. So, inspect. What's really cool about Chromium is that you can actually go right here. So if you inspect elements, you go right here, you can click this, and it'll let you check out different 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 sizes of things. So you can check out like phones, you can check out tablet sizes. And if you notice, the text isn't saying the same size, it's like adjusting to whatever the device is. So yeah, is that nifty? So, but yeah, that's something that you can do. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off because it's not super pretty on stream, but that is something that you can do. So definitely when you're working on responsive web design, and you're like, nowadays everyone goes on the internet with their phone. So you definitely want to make sure, what does your website look like in the mobile view, and is your website mobile friendly? I also want to say Bootstrap is really good for this. Yeah, Bootstrap is really good for this. It's super easy because it is like a CSS JavaScript library. You can also use Bootstrap to design your website. If you have GitHub education, there's actually a free Bootstrap studio where you can like drag and drop, design your website, and I'll give you all the code for it. Okay, thank you, Hustle0786. I don't know why that combo of numbers seems familiar. Is there like a fun reason why you chose that numbers? Okay, so we'll do font family, Arial, sans serif. Okay, you did not have quotes, so I'm gonna do what you do. So look at that. So now you'll see that the text looks different. You can write like this, right? Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you can. It's still like, it'll still read it as the right value. There's also like a lot of different other like ways you can make it kind of like look pretty, or different like basic font families you can use. You can use cursive, which is fun. It looks fancy, right? You can also use fantasy, which is essentially the Avatar movie script. But for now, I'm just going to keep it like Arial sans serif. Okay, so that's how we use font family. And next, we are actually going to talk about, we are going to skip 2.3 and let's scroll down a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about 2.3, we'll come back to, but we're going to go ahead and go to 3.1. So one thing that's really good about CSS, and as we did last time when we did Bootstrap and we used the grid system, it's really great for reorganizing things on your website. So by default, you'll notice that when you're coding in HTML, everything is just on top of each other, okay? That is a block display. You just, if you're a kid, you're playing with blocks, you're playing with Legos or whatever, you just stack them on top of each other, okay? It's just vertical. So that's default. What we want to go ahead and do is we want to try to make these. We have different displays that we can do. So this block display, if you notice, block paragraph, that's going to be the paragraph that we're changing. If we do something like display block, it adds right on top. And so if you look at it, let's look at the code. Let's look at the HTML. So the reason this happens is because span by default actually just goes like on the side, or it goes in line, but by adding block, we make it all stack on top of each other. This first part of the paragraph, the span goes on top, goes under it, and then this by default goes under it. However, if we check out this inline property and we go display and we do inline, we'll see that, it stays pretty much the same down there. Let's check out what that HTML is. Inspect. So let's look at that code. So if you notice, span is going to be default inline. However, everything else, if you think of just putting like elements on top, like a paragraph element and then another paragraph element and another paragraph element, that's going to be blocked by default. So you can kind of, oh, I'm in responsive, so that zoomed in. So you can kind of play around with these, figure out, you know, what does it look like when you change them differently? If you notice, this right here is the span element. This is the span element. So by default, it's inline, but if you do block, it stacks them on top of each other. So yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I made this website because I wanted an easy way to like, so you all could like see everything virtually. That being said, if you also ever want to like steal this and like try making it your own, as long as you don't sell it, you're very like welcome to practice around, and even maybe teach someone on your own. Okay, so again, we'll just kind of play around. We'll put that back to block. We'll put this to inline. So that is a display property. We love the display property. If we have time, we'll actually play around with Flexbox via game. So next, we want to use the width and the height properties to make the second paragraph, all paragraphs with the class second, 200 pixels wide and 100 pixels tall. Okay. I feel like that gives you hints. How do we want to, like, what line of code would we write? We have the width property, and we want it to have a 200 pixel value. We also have the height property, and we want it to have a 100 pixel value. A little tea break. I even brought the kettle because I was like, oh, probably finished my tea. So I'm just gonna top off, do a little refill. Oh, I think you can see it steaming a little bit. Ooh. I love hot tea. Okay. Can y'all guess? How would you do height and width? Let that cool down for a bit. Surprisingly, still steaming hot. I'll show you the way you can do with width. So the width, it would be the width property. And then you're just gonna give it I'm gonna put it in quotes. You're gonna give it a 200 pixel. Maybe I'll try it not in quotes. Give it a 200 pixel width. Oh. You'll see it down here. Can I add? So we don't use quotes, and then you'll see it change. So if we want to have two different properties inside the same selector, inside the same declaration block, what we can do is we can add a semicolon and then do another property value pair. So typically the better design practice would just be pressing enter, but however, the way I coded it, it doesn't really work. Oh, it's an error. Look at you go. Yes. So you'll notice that especially down, where is it? Especially down here. Okay. Especially down here, she's skinny. She is 200 pixels. We're like, instead of that whole, like taking up the whole page like everything else is. So we made that with skinny. We made it 200 pixels. Then if you notice, there's before and after we add the height. Notice when I add the height that it goes up just a little bit. So now we're making it that full 100 pixels rather than that little bit less that it automatically was. So we're making sure that it is that much space. It does take up that much space. Okay. Now, this one is maybe a little tricky, maybe not. But how would we do 3.3? How would we do the margin and padding properties? Margin and padding are really great. If you don't know the difference, I can go ahead and let's try to explain it. So let's say this is my let's say this is my content and this is like my border around the content. So if I want more padding, say I want more like top padding, then I would be increasing the space between the border and the content, okay? However, if I wanted more margin, I'd be focusing on the space outside the border, okay? So instead, if I wanted to increase the top margin, I would then be increasing the space outside the border. So margin is outside the border, whereas padding is inside. Yeah. Enthusiastic alien coming in. Okay, let's try this. Margin 20 pixels and padding 10 pixels. Ooh, so, here's something else I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually introduce a border so you can see. Border 1 solid. Let's make it green. Let's do a fun color. Let's do blanched almond. Yeah, isn't that fun? Okay, so this way you can kind of see it's pretty faint, but I just love the color blanched almond. I think it's a fun color. So if you'll see that if we go ahead and we take away the padding, that space in between the border and the text itself will actually disappear. Okay, this is a little hard. So let's go ahead and let's do some Dodger blue. Okay, there you go. So if I go ahead and I take away the padding, what you'll see change is that space between the border and the text. However, if I take away the margin, that space between that border and the text is not going to change. What only changes is going to be the space outside the border. So I think a really good, like if you're trying to like look for an example, look right here at the edge of it. So I take away the margin, you'll see it pushes all the way to the page, end of the page, add it back, kind of smushes it. So that's how we'll play around with that. Okay, now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we are going to go back at these slides and we're gonna go over a quick two kind of advanced things that we'll talk about very, very briefly, but are good for you to know, especially when in the future you're like, how can I do this? Is this a thing that I can do in CSS? And it is a thing that you can do in CSS. And so we'll look at it, and if we have time, we'll practice some more. Okay. So the first thing is what we ended on last time is pseudo classes. Pseudo classes are really cool because it allows for more visual interaction without having to introduce JavaScript. So this is something that you can actually do just in CSS. What's really cool is, I just think it's really cool, in case you haven't noticed by me calling it cool every 5 minutes or 5 seconds. Each element in HTML actually has special states that can occur when a user interacts with them, such as if you've ever noticed something change on a screen because you put your mouse over it, they're probably using the hover pseudo class. Or let's say if you see, this is really common. When you look at a link and you've clicked one link, the original link stays like whatever color, but then you clicked another link and it changes color. Usually it's like blue if you haven't seen it, and then purple if you have seen it. That's using the visited pseudo class. So that's something on the worksheet that we're gonna go back to. But that's a great way to add visual interaction without actually having to use JavaScript. We also have media queries. This is not something that we're going to go super in depth, but it is something that is important to know can happen. This is really great for responsive design, especially when you're designing for, let's say, like a laptop or a large monitor versus a tablet versus a phone. So the styles can change based on the size of the screen. This especially can matter when you want certain things to change. Like say you had a bunch of things right next to each other, but like left to right. But when you're viewing on the phone, you don't have that much like width. So you instead want to make it like top to bottom. So that's something that you can do using a media query for responsive design. Okay. So now let's get back to it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that worksheet back up for y'all. Okay, so we're actually gonna go back to, I believe it was 2.3. We're gonna check that back out, pull it up for you. And we're gonna be messing with the pseudo class of the anchor tag for visited. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we're gonna use the color property to make all the links pink and then all the visited links purple. We know how to do this. So also just to prime it, I'm not gonna click this link, but I am gonna click this link. Okay. So what would I add in here to make all the links pink and then all the visited links purple? We would start out with the color property. I'm gonna play around with some hex code too. Or actually, I'm gonna also introduce another way that you can do colors. I don't remember what this is called, but you can do RGB, and this is a function that takes in 3 different numbers from 1 to 2, 0. I think it's 0 to 255 or 1 to 256. I think it's 0 to 255. So I want a lot of red because I'm using pink. And I don't want a lot of green, and I don't want a lot of blue. So it looks super red. But let's say maybe I don't want this much. Maybe I just want the pink. So this actually makes it kind of a little bit darker. So we can play around with the color, figure out how to make this pink. What would make it pink? Can I remember color theory? That makes it orange because it's green. What if I introduced a little bit of blue? Oh, look at that. That's a really pretty coral pink color. So, dang. Okay, you know that, I don't know if that's that looks like it's for purple. So ooh, I like that purple. Oh, also, if you want to get a little fancy, you can also, instead of making it just red, green, blue, you can make it red, green, blue, alpha. And that last value is going to be between 0 to 1, where 1 is opaque, 0 is transparent. So if I make it 0, you don't see that color. However, if I make it 0.5, it will be in between like the original color. This is really cool if you like introduce it to, whatchamacallit, if you want to do things like make things more transparent. Yeah, okay. So shout out to you for knowing the RGB code. Isn't that so impressive? But also, no, not saying that's what you did, but you can always play around with it, and you can also usually Google these things too. So maybe you don't have them in your back pocket, but you can find them out. Also, thank you. I really appreciate it. Actually, fun fact, I found this idea from TikTok, and I was like, oh my God, what happened in that workshop? So I want to make sure that y'all have a chance to really like see what's going on, because seeing is believing. Oh, well, props for you for using your resources. Directly writing purple is also super valid. I just want to show y'all like different ways that you can do it. So honestly, I pink and purple is what I wrote when I first, like, that's in the answer key. There's no answer key, it's just in my head. Okay, so now let's go back to exercise 4, which, you know, now that we finished 2.3, we're gonna go into advanced technique. So this advanced technique is really, we're just be working on the pseudo class and the media query. So pseudo class, hover. I'm just gonna do this one with y'all. You would just do color. I'm trying to think if there's another fun way to introduce. I think we went over all the different ways we can do color. Oh, while we're here, let's go ahead and let me point y'all to a really cool resource, W3 Schools. Let me just. Okay, I'm gonna show y'all. So W3 Schools is a really great resource if you're learning how to code a specific, especially with like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It looks like they've added on like other languages since then. Typically, if you like look up a lot of things, W3 Schools will be one of the first responses. And they also have this really cool like CSS colors, which I love. Just because I think I love reading through the colors and seeing what they are. I'm going to go ahead and send it in chat as well. So if we're, what are we doing? We're going to use a pseudo class to change the color of the first paragraph to red when the mouse is hovering over it. However, it seems that when I finished this worksheet, I forgot that I actually made all of them red. So we're into a different color. If y'all want to actually check out the CSS, and if you tell me your favorite color, I'll go ahead and do it. I do kind of judge this for being brown because that's very clearly kind of red. Let's change to blue. What kind of blue? Is there a favorite kind of blue besides just blue? Pick like what's your favorite color that's in the CSS colors? You can sort this, I think. Oh. No, that is not how you sort it, but that also tells you how to do all the different colors. Ooh, okay, turquoise. Let's see if there is a turquoise. How do I spell turquoise? Okay, is that the only turquoise? Okay, dark, medium, pale, or just plain old turquoise. Can I share a site for colors? I want to say yes, but Twitch may not let you. Okay, we're going for plain old turquoise. So I'm going to type the word turquoise and then copy and paste it because, to be honest, I don't know how to spell it. So I just put in turquoise. Isn't that fun? Look at that. But when you go away, it's like red. But then it's like you know a little secret. You know what happens if you hover. It's like you could be like, oh my, wow, look at this paragraph. It's red. And then you hover and you're like, psych, it's actually a turquoise. Isn't that fun? So I don't know. I love CSS because it's a really great way to get creative with your websites, especially when you do like that visual effect, especially when you use pseudo classes, you're able to really like add a little hint of interaction. I think it's always fun when you go to a website and you hover over something and the text changes. I think it's a very simple way to garner excitement. Okay, last but not least, in the advanced techniques and for this worksheet, we'll be doing a practice after this where you'll actually spend more time like trying it yourself. We're gonna go ahead and use a media query to make the below center aligned when the screen is narrower than 500 pixels. So the way that we do that, if you hover the row, it also highlights. Yes, it does. And if you want to know why, okay, so you can't like, What's really annoying about HTML and CSS is if there's like a bug, it's not technically a bug. There's like no error messages for it. So one way that I debug is I just add borders to everything. So I'm gonna make this dark turquoise. Okay. So if you'll notice, when you hover it, even if you hover like over here, it still turns it to turquoise because that P element actually extends to the end of the page. So yeah, fun fact. You'd have to you'd have to do like some stuff to like change it. If you want to actually like edit that, you'd probably want to like change the width or things like that. But yeah, borders help me. Like for CSS, I use that to debug all the time. Okay, can anyone guess how to make this centered? While y'all like think on that, here I'm actually gonna bump that up. So I'm gonna inspect elements to bump that up. Okay. Text align center. Okay, let's try that out. Text align center. This one might be a little There's a potential that this one's a little whack because I remember when I was making these boxes, it was being a little whack. Okay, so the way we're gonna test this is if you inspect elements, I'm actually gonna go ahead and make this into like an iPhone 12 Pro. Let's make this fit to the window. Let's make this actually larger and 75. Okay, so this might not work, but let me show you a hack where we can actually do it inside the code. So when you have the inspect elements and say you want to change like the CSS on the site, what we can do is you can go to inspect elements and you can play around with this. Hold on. Close that. I'm gonna put this all on the same line because sometimes, because the way I did it was a little tricky and does require a little bit of finessing. Okay, I'm also going to add something called color, and I'm gonna make it green. So that way, you know, say I want to figure, like I know color green will work. So if the green color works, but the centering doesn't, then I know that the problem isn't with like how I did the selector and how I did the style. However, the problem is with like that bit. Okay. So it looks like that is not working. So what we'll go ahead and do is let's type in some code. So we'll be using a media query. Can I zoom? We'll go 50. Oh, this is so small. Let's see if I can. Can't zoom that in anymore. Okay, so this is kind of tiny, but we can actually also change like the style inside the expect elements. So if I go ahead and I center, I can do something like color green. Actually, for the purpose, so if you notice, I can do color green and stuff like that. For the purpose, it should work. It should. However, I think mine was a little buggy, to be honest. And that has less to do with the CSS itself and more how I put together this website. So if it works for you, max width 500, center me, text align, center. Okay, so it works for you. Great. That below is the answer. I'm gonna go ahead and walk through like what that means. So at media is being like, hey, this is a media query. Max width 500 pixels. That's saying like, hey, like if you're 500 pixels or less, if your maximum width is 500 pixels again, or less, then go ahead and apply these styles. So typically the way you'll have it is you'll have like a CSS sheet and you'll have all your styles. You'll have like P is blue, and you have like margin is 5, text font size is like 7, whatever. I'm just putting out random numbers. Then at the bottom, you'll do this at media, and you'll have like some media queries where you're like, okay, well, a phone is usually no more than 500. So once it goes down to that size, then apply these styles. So I like at that point, let's say when people are like viewing on a mobile, I want all my text to be a different color. I want it to be green instead of red. And you can kind of customize that experience that way. That probably, more realistically, people would change things like their margins or their font size or things like that. But that text color is just the most obvious thing that you can see. Okay, now we've worked through this worksheet. So what we'll go ahead and do is we will scroll back up and we will click Let's Practice. Let me know when you get here, and then we'll walk through it together. I'll explain it to you, and then I'll give you about 10 minutes to practice this. I'll like play some music. I'll take a small break, and then I'll set the timer, and then walk through it, and then we'll kind of do it together afterwards. So the challenge of this is we've already gone through like the property values, the property value pairs, and now we kind of more need to practice on selectors. I tried to frame everything so that way it would be like, it'd be a little technical, and you'd be able to read it and be like this. Make all the H2 elements into your favorite color. You can either use hex codes or another color name, which those are links like the W3 schools. So okay, I need to use the H2 elements, and I need to use the color property and then give it the value of my favorite color. Things like that. And that's kind of the instructions for the rest of it. We go over like a couple things. Okay. So if you're not sure how to get there, we're back on the original website. Scroll all the way to the top, and then where it says Let's Practice, you're gonna go ahead and click that. Okay, give me I'm in. I'm ready to practice my CSS once you get to this page. Because I'm gonna give you all about like 10 minutes to like play around with it, try it out, really practice. And then we'll come back and I'll answer any questions. We'll kind of go through it together too. So let me know when you get to this page. Give me a, I'm in. Like I'm ready to practice some woo. Okay, let's go. Can you explain exercise 4, second question? Yes, I can, Hustle. This one is a little more complicated. I don't expect you to understand this right off the bat. The reason I introduced it is just so you'd be familiar with that's a thing that you can do. Okay, so use a media query to make the below center aligned when the screen is narrower than 500 pixels. So, media query, at media, when the screen is narrower than 500 pixels. Max width, 500 pixels. Make the below has an ID of center and B. That's something that I did in the HTML, that if you inspect the elements, you can see that. And then make it centered. So let's see if text line center. This might not work just because it's a little buggy for me. But the concept is, let's scroll down. Okay, so it didn't work on this, but if you were to do it on just that's because the way I've set this web page up. But if you were to do it in a plain CSS, what would happen was every time your screen was narrower than 500 pixels, which is typically a phone size, then the text would center itself. So the way it works is you have this at media that's hey, this is a media query. When do you want to use this? You want to use this when it's no larger than 500 pixels. So the biggest it can be is 500 pixels, and then Otherwise, use the rest of it. If it's below 500 pixels, then use the styles below. And these styles could be whatever you want. So this is a media query. This is really helpful when you are working on, code that you want to be mobile friendly as well. Again, media queries are complicated. I don't expect you to understand it right off the bat, but it's more for something for you to like look into afterwards, but to know that it is a thing that you can do. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead to Let's Practice up at the top. It brings you to this web page. This is a bunch of HTML. It's not really cute, except for this. This, very cute. Yeah. It's got a bunch of HTML elements. It like doesn't look super great, but that's okay because you're going to make it look super great. I'm going to give you all about 10 minutes to do this, explore it on your own. Inside the website, I've given hints for things that you're going to do. So make all H2 elements into your favorite color. And you can actually put all your CSS here so you can actually see it change. So I'm going to make all the font colors or the paragraph. I'm going to make it color. Let's pick a fun color. What do I like? Tomato. I like tomato. I think it's a good color. I'm gonna make it the color tomato. Then I'm gonna go ahead and apply it. And you'll see that everything is, or all the paragraphs are now the color tomato. So you can go ahead and do this. Also, one thing I wanna point out is even if you apply it afterwards, once you apply it, the style's there. So you can refresh to like redo all your changes. But I don't recommend that. I think just like you can also overwrite. So I can do like paragraph and I can make them, ooh, that's not where I want to put that. I can make it like steel blue. And so now all the colors are changed. So what you're basically going to do is you're going to read through this website and you're going to do the appropriate CSS code in here. You can use Google, you can look things up. That's a-okay. Just don't, make sure you're like learning. And you're going to go ahead and change it. And then we'll go through it together. I'll write the answers after we go through it together, but I'll give you all 10 minutes to do this yourselves and to practice. And I will be back at the end of those 10 minutes. So we can actually go ahead and start this timer together. And I also have this timer going on the screen. So we're going to start this timer in 3, 2, 1. Okay, you'll see that countdown. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And I will be back. Hey y'all, not to alarm you, but I'm here. I hope everyone's doing okay. I don't want to talk too loudly and scare anyone. If you noticed, halfway through I changed the music to be more upbeat, more ready. I'm gonna change it back to the lo-fi. Feel like a DJ. Okay, it looks like our 10 minutes are almost over. You know, stuck on input. Honestly, I gave you some hard ones, so we can do that together. Not super worried. Also, let's see if I remember how to do them as well, or if we'll need a debug together. But honestly, I'm glad. I hope y'all had a chance to little time up notification. I hope y'all had a chance to at least experiment a little bit and play around. Let's go through it together. Okay. So, first thing, make all the H2 elements into your favorite color. I will be extra and let me find a color that I really like. Oh, Rebecca purple. Pale green. I love wearing like pale green. Mint cream. It's weird that that's a gray, to be honest. Medium sea green seems kind of fun. I think I'll do medium sea green. Or, you know what? I think I'm going to do medium sea green for the background, and then I'll do linen for the color. I'm going off script here. So if that color is going to be linen, I want to make sure that I make the background of everything medium sea green. I want to make that a little bit darker so you have a proper contrast. Okay. So now you'll see. This is what it looks like. So if you want to make H2 your favorite color, you just do H2 color and then whatever your favorite color is. Let's keep moving on. Okay, so there are 5 different font families. We talked about these font families earlier just for like a quick minute. We did sans serif, cursive, and fantasy. So we want to make sure the list title let's change the paragraph to something a little bit more readable. Something that's also a fun color. Let's use mint cream. I kind of hate that title, but I think it's fun. I love like how fun everything is called. Okay. So there's 5 different font families. You want to make sure that the list titles that have the class list title, you want to make sure that they're bold, so they have the font weight of 700. And then we want to change all the list items to our favorite font family. So, and we want to do something other than serif because that is the default. And if everyone could send in chat, actually, like I might also time myself to see if I can do this in 10 minutes. If everyone could send in chat, like where they got stuck or what point did they get to, I would love to read it. That way we can kind of go over it together, and I'd love to see like what might have been confusing if I can improve for next time. Okay, so first thing, we want to make the list titles have the class list title. So we're gonna do that period to say that we have a class. And we're gonna do list title. We want to change the font weight. We want to make it 700. And then we want to change all the list items. List items are the elements LI. And then we want to make that font family. Let's make that monospace. I feel like monospace always looks cool. And if I was coding like actual CSS and I was using Prettier, I'd have more spaces and tabs and things like that. But just because, you know, that doesn't auto do it for me, I'm a little lazy about it. Okay, so now you notice that the font families are bolded and that the list items are now in monospace. What's next? Did you know you can change the style of everything you see on the screen? Everything you see inside the screen is inside the body element. Use that element to make the background into your favorite color. I accidentally already did that with medium sea green. So we're gonna continue on. Now let's look at pseudo classes. Pseudo classes are a great way to add visual interaction to your website without having to learn JavaScript, even though we love JavaScript. Make all the H3 elements, the headers below, change size when you hover over them. So that's H3, that's the element H3, and then we're gonna do a pseudo class. So we do colon, and then whatever that pseudo class is, okay? So that's hover. Then we're gonna want it to change size. So let's do something like obscene. Let's do 50 point. And then I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. And then if we go, let's hover. It's a little glitchy because it's so massive, but look, it gets huge. What about lake green? Let's see, what is lake green? Let's look. I'm down to sidebar. I love sidebar. Oh, I'm sad. I thought lake green would be an actual color. You know what? If you know what color you would want lake green, let me know. What would lake green be? I'd be down to change it. Ooh. Change the transition duration. Yes, so actually that is something that I have already, where I have the transition duration. I'm not gonna change it for right now, but let's see if we can find it in here. Can we find it in here? Yes. So right now I have transition, all is 0.5 seconds. I can make it something longer. We can maybe do like 1 whole second. So let's see, this should get bigger, take a longer time. So it still glitches, but it glitches less. We'll go ahead and change this to lake green to E8B57. You know what? I vibe with this. I actually really like this color. Can we use Bootstrap and custom CSS like this together? Yes, 100%. You can. There's a couple caveats. If you can keep using Bootstrap, that I think would be good if you can. If you changed, you can change like colors, like what primary and secondary refer to. You'd have to look up how to do that, but you can do that. You'd also have to make sure that you order it in the correct way, especially since like CSS is loaded, like whatever comes first like is the oldest, and whatever comes afterwards actually rewrites it. Let's see if I can do like an example. So let's make P. Let's make the color Dodger blue. So something that I want you to notice is that, you know, I do have it mint cream, but later on, I've actually gone ahead and rewrote it to be Dodger blue. So the reason I bring this up is because you want to make sure when you're linking it, you link your own custom CSS afterwards. But you can definitely combine them. And I think it's like really, you know, especially when you're beginning. If you're when you're actually beginning, it's actually super helpful to combine them because you get the help of Bootstrap, but you get the customability of like writing it yourself. No way those are real color words. They are. They are, in fact. I love W3 schools. That's why blanched almond is my favorite color. I don't actually care about the color. I just love that it's called blanched almond. Okay, where are we next? Okay. Click one of these links and use the visited pseudocode to show the difference between the link you clicked and the one you have it. Okay, so we did this earlier. Maybe I don't want this as big. So we did this earlier. So A for the anchor tag, which is the like link tag. Then we're gonna do visited. Then we're going to, you can do whatever you wanted to show a difference, but I'm gonna do border. I've talked about it a little bit. So you do, if you ever wanna make a border, the example is like 1px solid blue. The first thing is the height, the thickness of the border. The second thing is the style of the border. There's like solid, there's dashed, there's dotted. I'll do dotted. And blue is the color of the border. So let's do another color just because I think these are always fun. Lemon chiffon or honeydew? I think honeydew. I'm gonna go with honeydew. So we'll actually go ahead and we'll make this honeydew. And then active is also an option. So this will show you like what's active. And we'll make this one font weight. We'll make this like super thick. Okay. So we're gonna apply that. And we're gonna click this one, the link that brings you to the pseudo classes section. Oh, did not change. Why? Is a good question. Did I apply this? Question is, why did that not change? Visited. Did I type something wrong? Let's do A just by itself, and we'll change the color to something else. We'll change the color to lemon chiffon. Okay, so that worked. Maybe remove the text decoration. So that's something text decoration. I think that's hyphened. I'm gonna say none. And because I have two, I have to make sure I do the semicolon to separate them. This border is not working. I wonder why. We'll have to debug that. Let's do another color for like when we visit it. See if my problem is with like with the selector and how I made that, or with like how I did the border. Let's do a fun color. Let's do let's do a dark salmon. Dark salmon. So whenever we visit something, visit a link, it should now be dark salmon. It looks like that the problem is with how I wrote these. Since the color did change to dark salmon, it might be a problem with the border. So let's do solid. Solid is what I normally do. Font size, 18 point. I did not do this in 10 minutes, so props to anyone who actually got those. Let's do 20 pixels. Let's go ahead and apply. Oh, this is strange. It's not doing what I would expect it to, and I'm not sure why. So we'll come back to this afterwards. Let's go through the rest of it, and let's see if we can debug it afterwards. Okay, so input. Use the focus pseudo class and see what happens when you click the input box below. So I will use, it starts to get a little bit like hard because like what I want to see is at the bottom. So let's do input, focused, and let's go ahead and let's change the background of it. Let's change it to background. What background do we want? Background, let's go ahead and let's do chartreuse. Chartreuse. Okay, chartreuse. So we'll apply that. Hopefully that worked. And then let's go ahead and let's click that. Oh. I wonder if there is a problem with my code. Let's do, maybe it's how I named it. Let's also make this dark salmon. Maybe use a media query to make a transition effect to selecting the input. So how would you do that? Go ahead and like, if you're able to like send it and explain it to me, please do. I'd love to know more about what you mean. This one isn't working, but let's see why that's not working. is that the right element that I should be using? Let's do background and let's do Dodger blue. Dodger blue, I feel like a lot of people use it. Okay, so input Dodger blue does work, but why is the pseudo class focus not working? And maybe is that related to the link? Let's see. Let's try one last thing. Let's try this image, and then we'll go back and we'll see if maybe do we have a problem with the pseudo classes. So using the ID dog pick and the active pseudo class, let's change what this looks like. So we're gonna make this black and white. So, and also probably want to change the size of the photo. Okay. So dog pick. Let's go ahead and let's make the width closer to like 200 pixels. And then dog pick active. We're gonna try this grayscale effect and let's see if that works. Filter grayscale, I think it's 100%. I think that's how I rate that. Let me check. Okay, so now this is less. And then when we click it, okay, so the active works. Click it, and you'll see that it turns to grayscale. I'm clicking it in case you can't tell. So we'll play around with that. Okay, next, pseudo class, focus. Okay, so the way I write the pseudo class, I did it the same way. Maybe let's look up, I'm gonna look this up. Input, focus, pseudo class, CSS. Ooh, it's not focused, it's focus. So that is on me. Let's see if that changes that. I clicked it, I applied it. Let's click it. Oh, I got the pseudo class wrong. That was the issue. So now when it is focus, so that's on me. Sorry for everyone. I will make a note to change that right now. It's the focus pseudo class. So I know GM Polum, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That's why, if you were stuck on input, that's why. That was my view. So make sure you use the focus pseudo class, and then I will change that right after this live stream. Okay, then what about links? How come the visited pseudo class isn't working? So let's try A, visited. Should be visited. So you'll see so there's a lot of really great resources online, especially since HTML and CSS are so popular. A visited, you can change the color. I wonder why the border won't work. Huh. But we'll come back to debug that too, because I want to make sure that we can go through the rest of it as well. So if you got stuck on the input, that's because it's supposed to be focus. And then for the image, if it's active, you can make it black and white. Next up, we have the timer. If we want to go ahead and change this, we can play around with this as well. The ID is time. So we can do time. I'm going to go ahead and paste the suggested things to change here. So I'll do 10 point. I think dotted is valid. Dodger blue. Then we'll do padding. We'll make the padding something ridiculous like 50. And we have margin. Feel free to shout out anything or send in the chat anything that you want to see. Right now I'm just playing around with these, adding a couple things. You could do whatever you wanted. Background, let's add another fun color. Let's do chocolate. No, let's do burly wood. Burly wood. And then let's make that font size. Let's make it into 40 point. Let's see. So can anyone send the REPL link? Yes, I can send that. So that is a link that you can open and you'll end up in the same spot. So you can really change the timer to whatever you want. Of course, you can always mix and match the colors to look a little bit better. Okay, so that's kind of what this worksheet is. It just gives you an opportunity to really see what are you doing and how does it change your page. That being said, you could always do this in code itself if you wanted to fork my REPL and change this in the style.css. You're also very welcome to, but I wanted to make it so it was something that you could really see happen. That being said, all this text box does, all this button does, is it actually just you could copy and paste this into a style.css file and it would all work the same. Okay, we only have about 10 more minutes left. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is I wanna show you all Flexbox Froggy. We'll kind of play around with it a little bit, but essentially, is there anyone here that has heard of Flexbox before or display flex? Flexbox Froggy is simply a game. Has anyone heard of Flexbox or display flex? This one is something that I'll introduce. Can't live without flex. Yes, John J. Leo. Agreed. Flex is honestly top tier. Oh, you've played Flexbox Froggy? This is my favorite one. Can live without grid. Yeah, so in the last workshop, we went over Bootstrap Grid, which is great in the beginning. But Flex is definitely a lot more versatile. It really depends on what you want to do. But honestly, this could be a controversial opinion. But for those of you that can't live without Flex, for those of you who have not had the experience yet to say you can't live without Flex, here's a really great way to practice using Flex. So if you go ahead and you click on this little frog, we're going to click it. We're going to go to flexboxfroggy.com. Flexboxfroggy.com. Oop, that is level 13. Let's reset that. Okay, so Flexbox Froggy is this really fun game. At least in my opinion, I have played it at like different camps. I've played it at different workshops. Every once in a while, I like to go back to it just because it's a really great refresher on Flexbox. It is a game where you have frogs and you have lily pads. Now what you have to do is you have to get your frog, your little frog, you have to hop on over to the lily pad. And the way you're going to do that is all with CSS. Oh my god, shout out 404 not found 19. I'm so glad you can see the Twitch streams. I'm glad you're on your PC now. Now you can actually pull up Flexbox Froggy. So flexboxfroggy.com, I highly recommend it. We are going to reunite this frog with its lily pad using just CSS. And there are plenty other ways to learn Flexbox, such as W3 Schools. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking W3 Schools. I love W3 Schools, as you can tell by like my 2 W3 Schools tabs up in the window. However, sometimes games are a lot more fun than just seeing the code change something practical. You know, sometimes you need a little game, a little less practicality to enjoy learning. Okay. So what's really cool about Flexbox Froggy is that it's going to tell you exactly what property you need. So right here, it tells you like the justify content property. If you click it, it actually tells you all the valid values. And you can actually click, like if you're too lazy to type yourself, you can actually like click these buttons. So the default is going to be Flex Start, or I could try center, or I could try a space between, or I can try space around, or I can do space evenly. I can play around with all these different things. So I'm gonna do the answer. I'm gonna just give this to y'all if you haven't already figured it out. I'm gonna go ahead and you have Flex Start, Flex End, Center, space between, and space around. And I believe that it's Flex End. The items align to the right side of the container. And so there is no embarrassment, John. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes when we do these workshops and we go, let's see if that works, and it doesn't work, it's not always because we don't know that it's not gonna, or it's not always because we know it's not gonna work. We gotta play around. I think all coding is trial and error, so you're not alone with that. So this one is Flex End. And whenever you get that frog on the lily pad, it's time to move on to the next level and see the next challenge. So level 2, now you have two little froggies. So let's figure out, what do we want? How do we move these frogs to their proper lily pad? How do we do that? It's still better than me. Hey, Honestly, Tailwind, Bootstrap, also very valid. Flexbox is also a very good skill to have. And honestly, going through these 24 levels, it's so verbose. We have about, I'll probably give this about like a couple more minutes. I do want us to go through, let's say, the first 3 levels, and then I'll show you what's left on like the practice. And after that, I would highly recommend that you go through Flexbox Froggy yourself, especially you think it's easy, and then you get to like level 24. And I've been using Flexbox for like 4 years. And level 24, I had to look it up on GitHub. I was a cheater. Okay, so level 2, we gotta get these frogs to the lily pads. We want to get the green frog to the green lily pad and the yellow frog to the yellow lily pad. How do we do that? We're gonna use the justified content property again, as it tells us. And let's try recommendations from the crowd. Let's try center. We're gonna keep going until, I know now we're gonna get to the third one. We're gonna keep going until it hits 7:55, or so 4 more minutes for me. Okay, now we move on. Ooh, so now we're using justified content again, but what's the answer for this one? This one is a little more tricky. I do recommend trial and error. If you find yourself forgetting the possible values for a property, you can click on the property name to view them. You just have to click on this button right here. So those are all the different options. Okay, let's see. Snare, you might be a Flexbox Froggy Pro. Let's see. Spaced around. Where did this go? Okay, 2 more minutes. Let's see how far we can get. Okay, now we're on level 4. We're still doing justified content. Usually about every 5 levels it changes. Justified content. What do we do? The lily pads have equal spacing between them now. Equal spacing between them. Look at you go. You know all these justified content. Space between. Okay, still 2 more minutes left. Now we're doing align items. So align items does more. It's more vertical. Let's beat it. If you can beat it and then before 7:55, props to you. Or yeah, that would give you 3 more minutes then. Okay, so align items. What do we want to do here? Oh. Looks like we got it. So let's go ahead and let's end. Look at us go. Okay. Oh, level 6 is tricky. Now we're using 2 properties. Gotta figure out what are these 2. We know the 2 properties, justified content and align items, but what do we put in between? That's what I'm saying. I love this game. I love it with my whole heart. Center and center. I will do that in a sec. But Thomas, do you mind specifying what you mean by image responsiveness really quick? Yes, I'm glad we're having fun. Okay, center, this changes justified content is for the left to right. Align items is for top to bottom. I love introducing this game or like playing this game with anyone who's trying to learn. Okay, now we have justified content and align items again. We got 1 more minute left. How many levels can we go? What do we do here? You know, what do we do on the x-axis and what do we do on the y-axis? You see, Grammarly is it's in like the punctuation. Okay, to save time, I'm gonna stop highlighting comments, but I do appreciate y'all. Okay, so snare. I feel like I said it right last time, but I have forgotten how to pronounce it since. Suggested this, and look, we got them all to the lily pads. Okay, Next, we have flex direction. Flex direction decides like the direction items are placed. So flex direction, we have 4 different options. We have row reverse, column, and column reverse. So row is by default. So it's probably not row, because if we type row, nothing happens. Row reverse and error. Okay, look at you go. Okay, and John and SKB, look at y'all go. Okay, it is unfortunately now 7:55, and I do wanna wrap up. So this Flexbox Froggy, I highly recommend. Keep playing. I think it's really fun, and even if like it's one of those games that as you play over and over again, it gets even better. So once you play through the game, you can actually use this to practice. So I've gone ahead and made my own, like, not as fun Flexbox, to be honest. Yeah, it's not as fun, but it's something that like you can play around with and see the practice. Okay, and then before I go, can we make every image that varies inside that fits into a screen responsiveness? There's a couple different ways to do this. You can do it in a media query. You can also, if you're like me and maybe a little bit of a cheater, you can also use percentages. So let's say we want images to be half the width of the screen. You'll see that I made that half. It's always going to stay half. So that is one way that we can do image responsiveness. Okay, John, I'll let you have this. I'll type it in. Oh wait, you're on 10. Dang, that's a spoiler, y'all. That's a good spoiler there. I'm gonna hide that. Pretend we didn't see that. We didn't see that. But props to John for going ahead. I love that game. Again, I highly recommend it. Okay. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. You're on 11. Look at y'all go. I hope y'all are having a good time because again, I also love it. I feel like once I got to, what was it that I got to? I think once I got to 15, I started having to like take a pause and I was like, maybe this isn't as easy as the first 5 levels. But it is a lot of fun. So before I go, I want to make sure that everyone has had a chance to check in. If you go on the Discord in the announcements, I have sent the link in there so you can easily click on it. You can also check out the schedule at ghw.mlh.io/schedule. If you scroll down to your first website, you can click it and check in through there. If at any point you missed whatever, or you want to see the slides again, or you want to see the GitHub, go down to hackp.ac FW with Mara 2. That is actually going to be our second one. That's the link to the second GitHub in the series. And then also, if you want to come see me again, check me out on Twitter at Mara Codes. Feel free to follow me, say hi, tweet me, whatever. I was like, seems like a lot of people in the tech world have a Twitter. Maybe I'll give it a go. So feel free to tag me, whatever. If you work on your own website, please tweet me. I would love to see how you practice it. I already started, so I can already practice. Props to you. We love practice. Get the link of the Twitter. It's Mara Codes. I think Twitter, do twitter.com/@MaraCodes. I think that would be it. I would love if you make your first website, if you use HTML, Bootstrap, CSS, anything you learned here, I'd love to see it. I love seeing how y'all grow. And I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be on a live stream with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to tweet me any feedback as well. I'm very open to constructive criticism so I can work on improving this for the future. So, it looks like, yeah. So if you wanna, that's my Twitter. That being said, this is part 2 out of 3. 3 is going to be on Friday at 7 p.m. So that is going to be 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. GMT. I don't think anyone here is in GMT. And then 8:30 a.m. in IST. So again, that's going to be on Friday, an hour later than the rest of these. I wish I was this talented enough to make 3 animation through pure CSS. There's actually really cool subreddits on this if you ever want to check them out. And you joined late, but like, no biggie. Flexbox Froggy is a pro. And all these streams, you can watch the VOD as soon as I log off as well. You're right, part 3 is JavaScript. So that's what we'll be working on. We love JavaScript. We'll be going over practicing JavaScript as like just a programming language using like a number guessing game. Then we'll make that into a really basic web game. And then if we have time, we'll make a Mad Libs game. But I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see y'all, and hopefully we'll see you on Friday. For now, I'll say bye and good luck with the rest of Global Hack Week. I can't wait to see what the rest of y'all do. Okay, bye y'all.